The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. I hope you're all doing well today. I am very excited. My good friend, Peter Ayedun with TruGrid, and we are live in Denver, Colorado. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Dan. It's good to see you here at the show.
It's good to see you as well. And I always love our conversations because we talk about things that are so critical to MSPs.
For sure.
And security. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when security was like a theme topic,
Yes.
at a conference.
Yep.
And then the next conference, it was security again. And security, it's always security now.
It's always
right?
security.
It's never going away.
To give you an example of how important security is, you heard about the letter that Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, wrote to all Microsoft employees, which is something to the effect that when in doubt, if you're trying to do anything for Microsoft coding-wise, trying to prioritize, when in doubt, say, pick security. That is how important, because Microsoft they've had their shares of issues in Azure and everything else.
Right.
So security is just is here to stay.
Yeah, and I mean every small mid-sized company, they don't always have the resources that large enterprise has.
They just don't.
If you find the right MSP partner that has the right tool set, they can provide that same level of security and the same level of protection, but you got to find that right partner.
Yeah, that is a critical role that MSPs play for mid-market customers because, like you said, enterprises have them in droves. They have all the money to hire a soldier, army of engineers and stuff. But when it comes to mid-market companies, they just don't have the resources.
Right.
So MSPs play a critical role in doing that. Yes.
So when you think about an MSP, you have MSPs coming up to you all day long at events like this.
Yes, for sure.
What are some of the things that they're saying to you? What are their concerns and how do you address those?
Yeah. One of the things I'm very proud to say is I'm actually proud of the MSPs that we work with. They're very versed in security.
Okay.
Many of them use all the right tools. They do a lot to make sure that from tools that will help you eliminate security elevation, like admin privileges and stuff. They have those. They have your typical EDR, endpoint detection and response.
Sure.
What I've noticed though is many of them focus on preventing attack once you're on the network.
Okay.
There's so many tools that do that, and they invest in them. What I often observe is not many people are spending time though on preventing the attack from coming in the first place.
Okay.
So it's almost like a little bit of a reactive once you get in. Well, proactive once you get in.
Yeah.
But you are reacting after they get in.
Okay.
So I think MSPs would do well to invest time in methods to prevent breaches from getting in the door in the first place.
Okay.
I think so. Once you can do that, then it reduces your burden in having to chase around and find threats on the network.
So do you think, let's look back to 4 years ago with COVID.
Yes.
I mean, that changed the world in so many ways.
Yes, it did.
Especially from a security perspective. And, we're past that now, but what's changed is the work from anywhere model is here to stay.
It is here to stay, for sure. Yeah.
It used to be a privilege, right?
It used to be a privilege. Yeah. And even though for the large companies, they're beginning to require employees to come home, to come back to the office to work in the office.
Right.
But I don't think it's because the work cannot be done from home. I think it's more because either they've invested in physical office locations and they have to justify the investment.
Sure.
Or they think there's something to be had from collaborating by seeing people physically that you can't always do remotely. And that's probably true because I don't think you can. There's something to be said for you and I seeing each other, right?
Yeah.
When we come to these trade conferences, there's something about me meeting you and talking to you as well that we can achieve when we do this through Zoom.
Yep.
Okay. I give an example. You and I, we met each other around COVID.
Yep.
And we did a bunch of things together, webinars here and there. Believe it or not, so the first time I met you physically
Yep.
was at DataCon.
That's right.
But the point was when I saw you at DataCon,
Yep.
I thought I'd seen you before. I thought it was only, I had to reorient myself to say, wait a minute, I've never actually met that in person, right?
That is so true.
Exactly. So I do agree that there's something to be said for meeting people physically, but then it shouldn't eliminate the potential to be productive wherever you can be.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of, so it's going to be, so the world going forward is hybrid. Any which way you look at it, it's going to be hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much we could talk about. I mean, we could be here for hours and hours and hours. And we've got other work to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some other things that you see that MSPs could implement in their business to protect their clients?
Sure. One of the things that I know is that MSPs, and we can tell by coming to us, our products, MSPs more and more, they're using Microsoft Entra ID as the authentication medium. When we started out, the primary method was Active Directory.
Yep.
Now is more Entra ID, the old Azure AD. So I would say that now when MSPs implement a product, it used to be more 100% AD. Then during COVID, decided to be 90, 80, 10% Entra ID.
Yeah.
Now it's more almost 50-50.
Okay.
In favor of Entra ID.
Right.
So the good thing is a lot of MSPs are already familiar with Azure, M365 and whatnot. So I want to encourage them to leverage this important protocol in Azure Entra ID, which is a conditional access.
Okay.
Conditional access can do a lot of things. But the one I want to focus on is using it to reduce your attack surfaces, right?
Yep.
So in other words, before threats get into your network, you can use conditional access to actually limit and prevent those threats from coming in the first place. And we can talk more. I know we have a few minutes, but I can tell you more.
Well, I think the biggest thing is most people aren't traveling the world every day, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
So an example is, so if you have customers that are they're hosting their email on M365, which all of us do nowadays, right? So even though you want to be able to receive email from anywhere in the world, but if your employees are not logging on from anywhere in the world, maybe you should try and talk to your customer's contact and say, do your employees travel outside of America, United States, or Canada?
Right.
If the answer is no, then use conditional access to limit login.
Yep.
Log into M365, restrict it to only United States or in Canada or Mexico, but essentially where your employees work from.
And then in those rare scenarios where somebody is going to be traveling abroad,
we can always then relax.
Adjust it.
Exactly, which is what we do.
Yeah.
So our company, we're hosted on M365 for email.
Yep.
And logins can only happen from United States.
Yep.
But when I do travel, like when I went to Punta Cana, all of a sudden I can get my email.
Right.
So I had to call home. I said, guys, can you please allow?
Can you adjust this?
And they did.
Yeah.
And when I came back, they removed it.
And there's proof right there.
Oh, yeah.
That's proof.
Yeah. So now, the beauty of that, okay. So for MSPs listening to this podcast, if you're unsure, MSP has a lot of logs.
Yep.
Why don't you go find out people logging into your customer systems outside the United States?
Yeah.
When you see the amount of attempts, that will tell you a lot.
Yep.
Now, the beauty of that is if you can just prevent that with conditional access, then it eliminates you having to fight the battle once they get in.
Yeah.
Right. So think about that. That's part of reducing attack surface.
Yeah.
There is more I can talk about.
Yeah. That's awesome. So as we wrap things up, you are the CEO, you are the man of TruGrid.
Yep.
And so can you tell our audience, what does TruGrid do?
What TruGrid does is allows you to log in to Windows systems, physical PCs, virtual machines, VDI, desktop as a service on any network, whether it's Azure, AWS, the private data center, without any firewall exposure, zero.
Okay.
So that nobody knows you exist online.
Gotcha.
That's the beauty of TruGrid.
Okay.
And without VPN either. You don't need VPN to connect to your remote desktops using our technology.
Okay.
Yep.
Huge protection.
A huge protection.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm here with Enrique from San Antonio. He is the owner of One MSP. I like the name. It's easy to remember, right?
Very simple. Hi, Dan. How are you? Good afternoon.
I'm doing great. We ran into each other. We met this morning, just before we were starting a session. And I learned that you are a partner of TruGrid. And
We are.
we just spoke to Peter just a little bit ago. Peter's an awesome guy and extremely knowledgeable. They do an awesome job at what they do, right?
Amazing guy. Him and his team, they're a great value to the community.
Yeah,
in
definitely.
every which way.
So how do you use TruGrid in your business?
So one of the biggest issues we have trying to secure our customer environments when we deploy our RMM, we always do go through an inventory of software, see what they have deployed. And it's very common for us to find either remote desktops like TeamViewer, AnyDesk, PC Anywhere, LogMe In, which no one really has any control over. They're just free versions that an IT guy would use to give them support and leave them installed. Sometimes the company owners or employees don't even know they're installed. They have 2-3 different remote desktop softwares running on their computer, and no one knows what credentials, no one knows what account. Most of the time they're linked into free accounts. I'm not saying those tools are bad tools. They're bad tools when you have no control over them.
Right.
They all have enterprise versions, or some of them do that. You could integrate in Entra AD to authenticate.
Sure.
So we're very heavily in the Microsoft stack. We use Entra AD to try to control all our customers and their environment and their MFA. So when we met Peter, we started talking about, I was not aware of TruGrid. I was not searching for an RDP solution. Ourselves, we were using RMM to go into the computers. But when we started talking, he started telling us about secure RDP, which I did not know there was such a thing as secure RDP. Coming from a world where 3389 was usually exposed to the world. So when he tells me about secure RDP and how it works, I started questioning him. And then he tells me, one, it's actually faster than if you do a direct connection. And I thought, okay, this is another vendor here just trying to blow smoke and telling me what
sounds too good to be true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I took it with a grain of salt. When we first deployed it and I started testing, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. He was totally true, because they run their own private network. So what they'll do is they'll bring your traffic onboard to their network and switch it through their network to get to the final destination. So it was a reality. Now what we do with our customers, one, if they have no need for remote desktop, we just remove everything, don't install anything. But we'll have companies that the accountant needs to work over the weekend. Sometimes they'll have some employees work remotely and they need to access their computers. You would think nowadays everything being on the cloud, it's less that you need RDP into it. But when we do have those environments that they need to have access to the computers, we'll deploy TruGrid, tie it into their Entra ID credentials. So now we're able to have clear visibility when they're logging in, if there's any login issues, if there's any failed attempts. And the technology they use behind TruGrid really makes it a secure service, as you have to open no ports. Your firewall is completely closed down. It does an outbound connection to their network or servers. They have a web portal that you can launch straight off of it. So it's been very convenient.
Now, is this something that you have as part of your stack, or is it an add-on for clients?
It will be an add-on. Basically, when anybody tells us they need remote desktop, that's what we'll deploy. Ourselves, we'll use our RMM tools to remotely control computers, things like that. Even though we do have some customer environments that they require secondary access, they use Azure Virtual Desktops, but then they require for their VMs inside Azure or AWS, they want to use, besides their SASE connection that they're already coming in through the private side of Azure or AWS, they want to have a second means of connection to these servers, and there we'll deploy TruGrid as well.
And so tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that, they're a great organization. Why are they a great organization?
Well, since we met them, we had never met. We dropped by the booth. Peter tells me who he is, met Brandon as well. He was with him. And right off the bat, they're just clear, transparent, something that you wish every vendor would do. They would give you that sense of caring. They're there for a community. They're not there just to sell you a tool. You constantly hear from them, what features do you need? What would you like to see in the product? Anything you're missing. So they have a great sense of understanding what the community needs. And speaking last night to Peter, ran into him and we were talking about different ways of using the product. And he's like, look, whether it's 1 license or 100 license, we want our product to be out there, people to experience the great service the product gives you, plus the support. When we onboard it with them, I like to onboard immediately. I don't like waiting for scheduling a call weeks away or things like that. So I'm like, look, I think I could get it, Peter. Don't worry. So I started going at it and I ran into a couple of hiccups. Man, it was probably close to midnight Central Time. And I'm emailing back and forth and they're responding.
Oh,
I'm
you're
like,
kidding.
okay,
Yeah.
this is my type of onboarding that
Yeah.
I like. So they understand the community and they go way past and beyond their services to
Okay.
make sure us as their customer and our customers, which indirectly are their customers,
Yep.
have a positive experience.
So they've become an extension of your team to some extent.
They are an extension. They even, speaking last night, they're like, well, you can use free Entra AD to authenticate because their tool requires either Active Directory or Entra AD. And they're like, well, we need to do a webinar for free Entra AD, how to onboard it.
Yeah.
We're more than glad to. So
Okay.
they're always willing to go the extra mile for anything that'll help their
Nice.
partners.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, Enrique, I appreciate your time. It's just great to be able to hear from an MSP using a product because, like you said, when you hear from a vendor what their product can do, but hearing from an MSP of how they're using it, it really changes the perspective.
It definitely does. And for us, it was also hearing from them what they did. It was kind of like, okay, we'll let you know tomorrow after we try it if you do what you say you do. And they've actually exceeded our expectations to what they do. So my pleasure.
All right. Thank you so
very
much.
Have a great rest
Appreciate
of the
it.
show.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.